This is African American History is American History. Welcome. I'm your host, Harlan Kearsley. This program's goal is to foster understanding, promote discussion, and expand knowledge through stories of historical events, bios of unsung heroes, as well as timely and relevant news stories which will paint a vivid picture of the effects of segregation, discrimination, and bigotry on the lives of both blacks and whites. Comparisons will be made between the many racially fractured periods of American history and what's going on right now. Slavery was abolished just 150 years ago. Jim Crow only 50 years ago. Yet stop and frisk, voter ID, stand your ground, income inequality, and a host of other current problems are proof that their detrimental effects continue to be felt, and that the struggle for equal rights for all must continue. Although she is considered by many, including the Academy of American Poets, as one of the greatest African American poets of the early 20th century, today, Effie Waller Smith is all but unknown. The year is 1865. With the Civil War over, former slave Frank Waller migrates to the East Kentucky mountains from the Virginia plantation where he had toiled as a laborer and blacksmith. Upon arriving in the rural mountain community of Chloe Creek, located in Pike County, Kentucky, Frank Waller worked hard to establish himself as both a blacksmith and a real estate speculator in that mountain community. Chloe Creek was unique in comparison to other communities of the time in that it was racially integrated. Now, this condition, coupled with Waller's early training as a blacksmith while he was still a slave, helped him to become financially successful and to win the respect of his neighbors, both white and black. In 1870, he met and fell in love with Sibby Ratliff. She was also a former slave who was born and raised in the area. Once firmly established as one of the most respected businessmen in the community, Frank asked Sibby for her hand in marriage, and the two went to work starting a family. The Wallers knew all too well of life's hardships, especially the ones caused by their own limited education. So they decided their children would have a leg up and receive the best quality education available to Negroes at the time. Effie Waller was born on January 6, 1879. She was the third of Frank and Sibby's 4 children. The Waller household was one in which God was heavily praised and education was highly prized. Upon completion of the 8th grade at a local school, Effie, like her older siblings Alfred and Rosa, attended the Kentucky Normal School for Colored Persons in Frankfort. It was there that she trained to be a teacher. It was also there that Effie took up writing poetry at the age of 16. She preferred to write in the traditional style of Tennyson and Longfellow. Once armed with her teaching certificate, she taught school off and on for more than 12 years, sometimes in Kentucky and sometimes in Tennessee, though very little is known about her teaching career. She did, however, continue to indulge her passion for writing poetry. Effie's style of writing centered heavily on the way she was raised, and her inspiration came from things that she experienced in her life. Her poetry spoke of ambition, bliss, grief, religion, friendship, and nostalgia. For example, in her poem, Applesauce and Chicken Fried, she not only talks about the memories of her mother's home cooking, but the yearning for the simpler things in life.
Applesauce and chicken fried. You may talk about the knowledge which our farmers' girls have gained from cooking schools and cookbooks, where all modern cooks are trained. But I would rather know just how, though vainly I have tried, to prepare as mother used to, applesauce and chicken fried. Our modern cooks know how to fix their dainty dishes rare. But friend, just let me tell you what, none of them can compare with what my mother used to fix, and for which I've often cried when I was but a little tot. Applesauce and chicken fried. chicken a la Francaise, and also fricassee, served with some newfangled sauce is plenty good for me. Till I get to thinking of the home where once I used to bide, and where I used to eat, my applesauce and chicken fried. We always had it once a week. Sometimes we had it twice. And I have even known the time when we have had it thrice. Our good yet jolly pastor during his circuits ride with us once each week gave grateful thanks for applesauce and chicken fried. Why, it seems like I can smell it, and even taste it too, and see it with my natural eyes, though of course it can't be true. And it seems like I'm a child again, standing by mother's side, pulling at her dress and asking for applesauce and chicken fried.
Since Effie Waller came from a humble home, all the finery of life was not something she chased or even aspired to. Effie believed in simplicity and taking life slowly while you have the chance to live it, which is a theme exemplified in another one of her poems called Preparation.
Preparation. I have no time for those things now, we say, but in the future just a little way. No longer by the ceaseless toil oppressed, I shall have leisure then for thought and rest. When I the debts upon my land have paid, or on foundations firm my business laid, I shall take time for discourse long and sweet with those beloved who round my hearthstone meet. I shall take time on mornings still and cool to seek the freshness dim of wood and pool, where calmed and hallowed by great nature's peace, my life from its hot cares shall find release. I shall take time to think on destiny, of what I was and am and yet shall be, till in the hush my soul may nearer prove to that great soul in whom we live and move. All this I shall do sometime, but not now. The press of business cares will not allow. And thus our life glides on year after year. The promised leisure never comes more near. Perhaps the aim on which we placed our mind is high, and its attainment slow to find. Or, if we reach the mark that we have set, we still would seek another, farther yet. Thus all our youth, our strength, our time go past, till death upon the threshold stands at last. And back unto our Maker we must give the life we spent preparing well to live.
This is African American History is American History. By 1902, several of Effie Waller's poems had been published in local papers, and by 1904, she had developed a large following of fans, many of whom lined up to purchase her first volume of verses called Songs of the Months. This collection contained 110 poems and touched on a range of subjects, such as nature, romantic love, patriotism, and like the title suggests, the months of the year.
February. Cold now is the breeze's breath, covered is the ground with snow, and in maple forests sugar campfires glow. Like jewels from trees and cliffs, icicles hang a-glittering, and the little snowbirds are merrily a-twittering. Above the earth so brown and cold, and above the snow so white, The crocus now opens their golden petals bright. Cold and windy February, we're glad that you are here. For you bring Valentine's Day, we love so well and dear.
That same year, 1904, Effie Waller married a man named Lys Cockrell. Not much is known about him. Some biographies say that Cockrell was a transient worker on the railroads who quit the marriage after a little over a year. Effie filed for divorce soon after. Even during the personal trials of her life, Effie Waller kept at her writing. She put out a second volume of verses called Rhymes from the Cumberland, and even had 3 short stories published in Harper's Weekly, where she would appear regularly. In 1908, she tried matrimony again with a former classmate from the Kentucky Normal School for Colored Persons, Charles Smith. He was a deputy sheriff. Her work continued, and in 1909 a third volume called Rosemary and Pansies was published. Effie Waller's marriage with Charles Smith produced one child, who died in infancy. Following the loss, the marriage began to fail, and by the end of 1910, Effie Waller Smith was again filing for divorce. In 1911, Deputy Sheriff Charles Smith was killed while serving a warrant. They had only been married 2 years. By 1917, at the age of 38, with the crushing heartache of losing a child and 2 failed marriages, Effie Waller Smith stopped writing altogether. The passion was gone. In 1917, Effie Waller Smith appeared in print for the very last time. The publication was the prestigious magazine Harper's Weekly. The work was a sonnet called Autumn Winds. In 1920, she relocated to Wisconsin, where she raised Ruth, the daughter of a deceased friend whom she adopted in the late 1920s. Effie Waller Smith, considered by many as one of the greatest African-American poets of the early 20th century, died on January 2nd, 1960.
This show was written and directed by Harlem Kearsley. The cast for this episode included
Soraya Butler as Effie Waller Smith.
I'm Harlem Kearsley. On behalf of everyone here at African American History is American History, thank you for listening. And remember, none of us can truly embrace the future until we first confront the past.
African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2016.